Unlocking people's potential. Many organizations try to do exactly that. However, many organizations fail to do that. So I'm very happy that we have someone here who actually succeeded to do that. Hello and welcome, Ernesto Gómez.
Hello, Niels. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. So I saw on your CV you have been the VP at Alpha. I mean, they have more than 80,000 people working for them, and then you became the CHRO of Sigma. So most likely, I ate something which your company produced. More than 40,000 people on staff here. And when you want to unlock, especially in these large organizations, when you want to unlock people's potential, because that's your new book, Regrowth: How Organizations Can Overcome Stalling by Unlocking Other People's their people's potential. What I see in many organizations is they say, okay, if we want to hit these next goals, our method is we push harder. That is
Yeah.
what most people do. They say, okay, let's push harder, let's raise the goals. And when they don't meet the goals, there will be most likely sanctions. So what do you think of that kind of approach?
Thank you for asking me that because I really think that for a while, you're putting pressure into teams, demanding more, requiring, raising the bar constantly. You used to deliver results, quite frankly. And many organizations and leaders use that style just because it was profitable for them to do that. The problem is that when times change and you require more creativity, ingenuity, innovation, where you require people to be kind of imaginative or have more foresight, you cannot push for that. Those things you can request for people to do certain things, but all of a sudden you find that just raising the bar and being applying stress to the team doesn't cut it. So that's what I call kind of the push approach to leadership, and for these days you have to kind of, instead of having that as your baseline mode, you have to switch into a more pull leadership where you connect with people, and when you connect with people, you try to find out, what is this person, what does this person have that I can access, and what is inside the person that can be of value. And it's kind of a mental switch because it requires something which is not really easy, which is, let me break through, gain trust, get closer to the team, to the person. And this is something that we have not been taught to do, because as leaders, you're supposed to be the boss, have all the answers. But all of a sudden, you have to, in order to really access and pull this potential out of a person, you have to connect and understand what this person has inside. How else can you unlock potential if not by, probing and knowing what the person can do? And this requires more of a humanistic approach, which is not intuitive for leaders these days. But this is what you have to do actually to break through. Uh, Teams are the basic unit of analysis of any organization, right? I mean, we kind of focus on people, but actually what we want to unlock is the potential in teams.
Mm-hmm.
And it just by focusing in people and trying to make this environment where people can collaborate together, that's when you start, seeing better results. And I know it's not easy and it's uncomfortable for many leaders, to do that. But that, quite frankly, that's the only way to really see what a person has to give. I don't know if you know about this. I haven't seen reports or serious studies about what is the percentage that of potential that you can unlock from people. But what I've seen and what I've asked many leaders and CEO is that, as a general rule, people are only operating at 50% of what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
At least
And you
50%.
want to unlock the other half. You want to unlock the. So let's say I'm your CEO, and you say, okay, we need to get closer to the people and unlock their potential. So we have to understand the teams and the people. And then I'm a CEO and say, look, Ernesto, we are a stock exchange listed company. We need to bring results in quick. And your approach seems to take quite a long time. And when there's one thing we do not have in this business is a lot of time. So how can I unlock people's potential without saying, oh, we're going to have this 5-year development program where most likely the board will say, sorry, that's just too long?
Yeah, first of all, that's a great question, because I've been working for public companies for a
I
while.
know.
I retired a year ago, but I know how difficult it is, to comply with markets. First of all, there is this kind of a skewed way of looking at things, that you go from being bad to being good in just one. That's not real. That doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that you cannot get better, gradually, but you don't go from bad to good, in just a snap.
Yeah.
Second, I would say that if you start working, I propose in my book a framework, what I call the stewardship model, which kind of plays in the realm of what I've been telling you about, this pull approach, in which you have to do four things pretty much. First of all, you have to make sure that there is the ownership in each and every individual, and understand what they are supposed to do. Second, you have to make sure that the team plays in a way that help others grow. It's not that, I'm going to be measured and valued just because of my results, but because of how I make the team better. You have to make sure that people balance, what I call truth versus ego. Ego, it's good up to a certain, level.
Can become dangerous very quickly. And when you worked on board level, you have probably met quite a number of people who have an ego that doesn't fit through the front door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but when you are supposed to find ways to, I mean, I like a lot this saying that says you don't have to be right, you have to get it right. So you have to maintain a mentality where it doesn't matter if you are right or not. As long as you get it right, you're gonna be making good decisions and delivering good results. And the fourth and last step, it's create what it's called psychological safety, where people are free to speak up.
Extremely important topic
So you
today.
have ownership, you have a people that plays as a team, you have a balance between the ego and truth, and everybody feels it's safe to contribute. Those four elements, when you start installing that framework in the organization and scaling that framework, immediately you're going to see results. That's at least my experience, because teams ignite, and potential it's interesting, because potential, it's really an assumption. It's a horizon. You see, this is what I think I can do, but as you get better, all of a sudden the goalpost moves, and you realize that you can do even better than you thought. So that's what I'd like to think about. How can people start? If you start by saying, I'm just at 50% of my potential, imagine what you can accomplish once you move, in that path. So that's the philosophy. And what I'm saying is, this is not just a conceptual idea. I've tried it in teams, and it works. That's my experience.
So when you from the highest level now say, this is the approach we want to take, that is, of course, a best case scenario, when from the highest level someone says, we're going to take this approach to get to know people, to get to know closer to the employee, to unlock the team's potential. And suddenly, somewhere on a mid-tier level, there is a manager, which is probably 2-3 levels below you from a CHRO level, who says, look, I want to get my next promotion, and when I squeeze 20% more in productivity out of here, I will be promoted, and then I'm gone from that team, so all the negative consequences will hit for the next person. How do you make sure that this does not happen, that some people on lower levels suddenly say, look, my agenda is more important than your agenda?
The approach that we followed in the past when we scaled the culture of a company was a top-down approach, as you were saying. So first of all, you have to have a convinced C-suite, and the leader, the CEO.
Nothing happens without them.
Nothing happens without them. And you start, showing with example that that's what you are going to go. But as you kind of go through the organization, it's very common that what you mentioned happens. The middle part, it's very difficult. So what I suggested, and what we started experimenting with, it's kind of a bottom-up approach as well. and all of a sudden you have both, working at the same time. Now, the medium part is very complicated because, as you were saying, people are there. You find normally people with tenure that have been doing this for a while,
Yeah.
and they have results. They have a position to take care of. So it's difficult, but slowly but surely, those who are not players are going to show up, and you
Mm-hmm.
get feedback from their bosses and of course their employees, just because you're doing the two approach, and then you start focusing each by one by one.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I have to tell you, transformations are difficult for some people. And I used a phrase that I'm not sure it's very familiar with. It's either you change people or you change people.
Mm-hmm.
So you change a person, or
Yeah. You exchanged them.
then
Yeah.
say, you're not right for this
Yeah.
position. So
Yeah.
that's the mentality that you have to operate with.
Yeah. Let's say when you want to convince, because you said you have to convince C-suite. So we agree here, without them, nothing's happening. One thing which I found extremely interesting on your LinkedIn, where you said leadership is not about mastering a style, it's about developing range. When you joined the company, I am pretty sure there were some people in positions for a long time, 5 years, 10 years, or even longer. And now you show up and you say, you should change your style. And someone on C-suite said, look, I'm in this business for quite a while. I'm successful for a reason. What do you want to tell me how to run this business? How do you convince someone who is so sure about doing it right in just one leadership style way, which is, as we all know, scientifically speaking, is outdated? But how do you convince someone that they suddenly need to adapt to the employee rather than telling employees adapt to my style because I'm more the authoritarian type of whatever they're going to claim?
Well, first of all, what I've seen is that there has to be a pain point in the organization. If there is no pain point, something that, really, you're stalling, or there is something that is happening, in your environment that is worrying you. It's very difficult to move a person who feels comfortable in a situation. So there has to be a situation where serious enough for the company to consider, we have to change our ways because the environment is changing. Think about this, the last 5 years in the world, there was a pandemic, war, climate problems, supply chains, etc. If you were to ask leaders, do you think that the next 5 years are going to be easier than the last 5 years? More than likely, you're going to get the result that, I don't know, it probably is going to be more difficult, even.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if that's not really a motivator to do
Good
things,
point.
then there's going to be a big problem, because I've seen that, and I've seen this many, many times in my experience. There are two kinds of people: people that want to change and do not know how. That I can help, or people know they have to change, but in the bottom of their heart they don't want to. That it's beyond redemption, in my experience. If a person knows and he feels and he hears, yeah, I should change, but deep inside yourself you don't want to change, it's going to be a hassle. So what I would say to answer your question is a combination of, is the environment serious enough for me to consider change? And am I willing to hear new ideas on how to reach my goals? And then I can help.
Excellent. So when now people say, look, this all sounds extremely to the point to what I need. And you've written a book, Regrowth. We talked about that, how organizations can overcome stalling by unlocking their people's potential. When people buy your book, what's in there? What do they get out of it? What is this book about? Can you give us a brief summary of what can people expect when they buy your book?
Well, first of all, as we say, I stayed saying that, we have a growth mandate. If you take up a leadership position, you're expected to improve something, market share, revenues, profitability, whatever. So what I kind of say is, well, if you want to play at the systems level, and you have to move the whole system, what do you have to do? And I suggest you have to work on 3 dimensions, 3 things. First, the talent density of your organization. Second, of course, the culture, and then mindset. Talent density means that you have to have the best people possible that you can afford in key positions. You don't have to have the best of the best in each and every position of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, it would be great, but
Yeah, but
reason.
there's competition on the market and there are constraints. You can't always get the best person working for you in your location at any point in time given. Yeah.
That's correct. So in real life, what you want to make sure of is where your competitive advantages are. You need to have the best people. So you have to kind of do a soul searching about, where am I lacking? What kind of company, what kind of leadership pipeline I have to make sure that that's going to work. Because if you don't have talent, I mean, forget it. You cannot really build a company just out of culture. Culture is important, but if you have a bad business model and you have bad people, it's very difficult to succeed. So first of all, make sure you have the talent density. Second, you have to have this enabler, which is culture, right? And culture, it is extremely important. And what I have found is that you have to design for adaptability in culture. The main problem of organization is renewal. That's always been the problem. How can you renew yourself? So you have to design for that and make sure that, and it's difficult because if you're a reasonably successful company, you probably have locked into certain ways of doing things. And you have to start questioning, not only those, but what is the space that I want to occupy in the future? Meaning, do I want to extend beyond my core? And if I go further from your core, you have to work on your vessel, and your vessel is your company. So what kind of things you have to take up?
Excellent metaphor. Excellent metaphor. Yeah.
And I simplify things. I say that culture is three things. And I know people are going to say, what do you say? I mean, there are many things. It's the creed, it's the context, and it's the leadership model. You have to work on those three things and make those work. And finally, at the end, or in the end, people who are trying to pursue a transformation, we are in the mindset business, actually. Because what you are trying to develop is a mindset within the company, and everything else is means to an end. So you have to start working on what beliefs I want to make sure that people hold. I say that you have to also promote agency, because you have to have people, do things and then reflect on what you did. Because if you just do without reflection, it doesn't work. You incorporate that learning and then you go on to do that. So it's talent density, culture, and mindset. Those three things, you start design for that, and that's the transformation.
Excellent. I have one more bonus question. Are you ready for one bonus question?
Yeah.
Would you say that lifelong learning is important?
Absolutely.
So we receive roughly 400 requests a year, sometimes more, for people who want to be on that podcast. And lifelong learning is something I consider important as well. I mean, I looked at your CV, and this is just an excerpt from Stanford, Sloan Business School at MIT, Wharton Business School, which is the #1 business school in the world at the moment, Kellogg School of Management, Chicago Booth London Business School, IMD Business School. So tell me the secret why I speak to so many people on C-level who tell me lifelong learning is important, and on their CV, I do not see anything near that, because they tell me our business is so tense, I don't have the time to go to these seminars. So how can you make it happen with a 80,000, 40,000 people company on C-suite level, and others say, I don't have the time for that? What's your secret?
I really think that, first of all, I've been pivoting myself in my life. In the book, the last chapter I devoted to how can you self-lead your own transformation as a person, right? And because I talk about companies, and then I say, you know what, I'm going to put a bonus chapter, as you were saying. And I noticed that I had 8 major transformations in my life. And what I believe is that you have to have a strong why, a very, robust aspiration. Otherwise, it's just hard. I mean, combining work with learning, it's hard. It's difficult. You have to have a good enough reason to do that. And I think it goes.
I did 2 MBAs besides my work. Tell me about it. Yeah, so absolutely, you need to have a why for that. Yes.
Exactly, and that's what I think, that curiosity is one of the major, most important attributes of any leader. if you are not curious, if you don't want to, up your game all the time, knowing that whatever you're doing today, like this book, what brought you here won't get you there. If you don't do that, you're gonna pretty soon you're gonna be in the cemetery of sameness.
Yeah.
And that's something that you really have to believe. Unfortunately, many of the CEO and C-suite people that I work with sometimes don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is something that I believe should be a new, value or principle in organizations, that you really have to be able to renew yourself. Otherwise, you may not really fit for the company.
And also, when you claim that your people need to learn and develop and adapt to any situation, while at the same time on C-suite you do not do that, you probably lose your credibility for anyone in the organization, because they say, I should do this and that and an MBA besides my work and all of these certifications, and you don't do anything. Why should I follow you?
That's exactly right. I mean, you
Yeah.
lose all credibility.
Yeah. Excellent. I think these are the perfect final words. Regrowth, how organizations can overcome stalling by unlocking their people's potential. Ernesto Gómez, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Niels. Thank you.